I'm Norm Easterbrook, Director of River Center here in Columbus, Georgia. For more than a year, the COVID-19 crisis has been ravaging our entertainment, arts, and cultural community. We anxiously await the day that we will once again welcome audiences, and that day is now in sight. With what we have learned from science and the health community, and with the advent of the vaccine for COVID-19, we are all planning on how we will restart the arts in Columbus, Georgia. Here at River Center, we thought it would be useful to share with audiences and patrons of the arts how our various institutions have been managing this past year, but most importantly, what to look forward to as we restart the arts. River Center Arts in the Spotlight is a series of conversations focusing on how restarting our entertainment, art, and cultural organizations will look and what that means to our community. Let's start the conversation. Today's conversation is with George Delgobo, the maestro of the Columbus Symphony Orchestra. George, thank you for spending time with us today. You've got a really exciting thing coming up for the orchestra, for River Center, for our community, and that is your first public performance in, what, 12 months?
A year, almost to the day.
Yeah. Beautiful Baroque, March 13th at 7:30. We'll go through all of that first, but I wanted to ask you, you did a recording session just a couple of weeks ago here. And could you talk a little bit about that in our beautiful Legacy Hall? I think it was Carnival of the Animals.
Once we got Kanye to behave, it worked out pretty well. No, it was our first gathering since we suspended operations, and it was really nice to see everybody again and to see everybody was more or less surviving. And I think we did a pretty good performance of Carnival of the Animals. It's still now in the post-production stage, so I don't know what the rating on it will be when it finally comes out, but it's meant for children, obviously.
Yeah.
And will be available to schools and others all around the area, anybody who wants it. Free.
Yeah, that's a terrific thing, and you know, despite, we were just chatting before we started this, you know, despite everyone wearing masks and having to stay separate, I can't imagine there wasn't some sense of joy in the room being together again.
Well, I was happy, and that's all that matters, of course, but I think people are going to think I'm a total jerk. I think that everybody was glad to be back together and making music again. I mean, that's what we do for a living, and some of us may do other things, but that's not why we're alive, and it's not what we live for. It's to play music, and we don't do it for the monetary reward. We don't do it for approval of anybody. It's just something that's in us that we have to express and do, and I think that's true of any artist. And it was nice to get together and do something, even something as simple as Carnival of the Animals.
Yeah. And I think also, you know, we need to understand that the school system, I believe, is going to be doing some things into the summertime. And I would urge any homeschooling situation or classroom situation to get on your website and see how they can access that and share that with their students, because we've got a long ways to go before our school systems get back in order.
Absolutely. I don't envy those people who are making those decisions have a really tough job. This will be available, I think, probably within a couple of weeks. It's not immediately available. We're putting in all sorts of graphics and pictures and tapes and things to illustrate the music. So it'll be a little while before it's available, but then it'll be available for everyone.
And the other great thing about it, too, is that it makes classical music fun.
Well,
it just makes it fun.
It was Saint-Saëns poking fun at a lot of his colleagues and rivals and borrowing their music, like everybody knows the can, that music, and making that into the tortoise and playing it so slowly that you can barely recognize it, and things like that, and making fun of pianists. And I think he was at a point in his life where he needed just a little break, and he decided to do this and just have some fun.
Well, that's terrific, and it's a great service that you're doing and the Columbus Symphony is doing, so we appreciate that a great deal. Listen, let's talk about beautiful Baroque. We got some different folks. Saturday, March 13th, we've got Bach, Handel, Pachelbel, Vivaldi, Bieber, Corelli. Wow, what a list. Tell us, what's on the agenda? What are we going to listen to?
I can promise you two things. Well, one thing, it's Baroque. It might be beautiful. We're hoping for beautiful. And that remains to be seen. But it's a pretty standard selection of the pieces that these composers wrote. Bach's Brandenburg Concertos are among his more popular works, and we'll be doing the third one. Corelli was the first the composer who really gave form to what's called a Concerto Grosso, which is a piece for strings and continuo, which is a harpsichord and bass line, that features two groups of musicians, one called a concertino, which is usually a couple of violins and a cello, and the other called the ripieno, which is everybody else. And they play off against each other. And he was instrumental in making that form, giving that its final form. And then similarly, Concerto Grosso by Handel, who was a little bit later than Corelli and who was inspired by Corelli and modeled his concertos after Corelli's. And then there was Vivaldi. His concertos were totally different because he was Italian and from Venice. And of course, being from Venice, he had his own ideas and ways of thinking about things. So his concertos are totally different, and he wrote a lot of them. So, and there are really all kinds of compositions, but this particular one has no concertino, so there are no solos, and it's in 3 movements, fast, slow, fast, which is almost like a precursor to the symphony. Pachelbel canon, I mean, I joke that if you got married in the 80s and didn't have that at your wedding, you're probably not married. It was that popular, and so everybody knows that, and it's been used in films and other things. Yeah. And Pachelbel, who was a brilliant organist and a precursor of Bach, wrote hundreds of pieces, and this is the one he's known for. And it wasn't really discovered until the early 20th century, so it died with him and lay buried for many, many decades. And Bieber's a really interesting composer that a lot of people have never heard of. He was the best violinist of his time, supposedly, and he was extraordinarily innovative in what he did. He thought in ways that no one else was thinking. He wrote a lot of wonderful music for solo violin, in which he retuned the instrument. So instead of the standard tuning in fifths, uniform tuning, he would lower a string by a half step, raise another string by a half step, and that gave him the ability to play chords much more easily than if he used the standard tuning, and he did some incredibly inventive and beautiful things. This particular piece is called Battle, and it's kind of the 1812 of the 17th century. I mean, it's a piece with several movements, and each one expresses a particular aspect of war. And some of it is very amusing, and some of it's very poignant. There's one movement where everybody's playing in a different key.
Wow.
So you have like 7 voices, all in different keys. It's totally incomprehensible. You can't figure out what's going on, and then it just sort of ends. And nobody did that sort of thing back in the early 1700s. So he's worth investigating if you like Baroque music and you've never done that. His music is worth your attention.
I'm looking forward to the concert. I will be here. We're going to be maintaining the same protocols that we've had for all of our events. The audience is going to have their temperature checked. They're going to sanitize their hands. We'll be seating people in groups to maintain social distancing and all of that. So it'll be a slightly different experience. So we appreciate your organization working with us on that a great deal. With all of that in mind, push all of that aside, is there a moment in this concert that if you could turn to the audience and say, please listen to this. This is what I want you to hear.
Well, that's a hard question. I want them to hear every single note. It's a very difficult question to answer. The Bach piece, for example, is because of his unmatched genius. It's a phenomenal piece of counterpoint, and instruments are grouped in groups of 3, and there are 3 groups of 3, and it's very symbolic in that way, and it's a very complex piece, lots of counterpoint and handing off one group to the next, and to appreciate that kind of craftsmanship and art is something that's easy to do because Bach is easy to appreciate. For me personally, I'm a big fan of Corelli, and I like his music because I feel, this is going to be really funny sounding, odd sounding. I feel clean after I listen to it.
Yeah.
It's so pristine and pure and transparent, and it just makes you feel good. And that's the reason I like it. It's not dense, it's not hard to access. The emotions are right there. The textures are very clear and transparent, and I personally just feel good after that. So I hope that, I think that's going to be the last piece we play on the concert. I hope it sends the audience off with a feeling of being refreshed and being this much closer to being normal again.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that insight. Now, we talked a little bit about humor. I know if you're all out of Monet, you are Baroque.
I'm not going to use that one.
Okay.
I'm going to, we have 5 concerts coming up in a period of a couple of months, and I'm happy to talk to an audience when I think it's appropriate. And I think for 2 of these concerts, it's probably appropriate for me to talk about the pieces a little bit. Mm-hmm. For the other 3, I probably won't say anything. But this one, I will be just saying a few words about each piece. I can't resist a joke if I think of one, and that remains to be seen. But we want people to be comfortable and to feel connected to what we're doing and to recognize that we are just human beings playing music, and just like there are human beings listening to music. There's nothing awesome about us in any way.
Yeah. Well, this is terrific, and we certainly look forward to it. Anything else you want to add about the program, or any thoughts that you have to share with our folks here?
No, I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for us because we're going to be spread out, and musicians don't want to spread out. They want to be right next to each other. And the audience, likewise, will be isolated from one another. So in that regard, it's going to be an unusual experience for all of us. But, I feel that life without music is not life worth living. So having us start playing again, having people come and enjoy what we do and take whatever they take away from it, makes us all a little bit better. And we're looking forward to resuming our activity.
Yeah. I couldn't think of a better way to bring this conversation to a conclusion, Beautiful Baroque, March 13th here at River Center. Check out the CSO website, and you can buy tickets through that link.
You can buy tickets there or through the River Center box office. You can come to my house, I'll sell you a ticket.
That's great.
Yeah. They're a lot more expensive if you come to my house.
Do you barter for anything?
Well, it depends. We have some yard work that needs doing, but don't expect a bargain if you come to my house.
George, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your sharing your thoughts about this concert, and we look forward to it a great deal, and thanks for what you do and what the symphony does for our community.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this River Center Arts in the Spotlight conversation. If you would like to suggest a topic, organization, or individual for us to include in these conversations, please contact us through our Facebook page or through our website. We look forward to continuing these conversations as we restart the arts in the Columbus community.